Today, I messed up by accidentally becoming my client's wife's boyfriend. Let me take you back to a couple of months ago, when I found myself in a situation that was so bizarre it felt like a scene straight out of a comedy skit. I'm a divorce attorney, and I've been practicing family law for about 8 years. My job usually involves helping people untangle their lives, and while it can be routine, every now and then, something unexpected happens. In March, I took on what I thought would be a straightforward divorce case. My client, whom I'll call Dave, was a nice guy who had been separated from his wife for over a year. He just wanted to make things official. The case seemed uncomplicated, and I figured we'd have it wrapped up in a few months. Dave seemed reasonable, not the type to create unnecessary drama. Around the same time, I had started dating a woman named Sarah. We met at a coffee shop near my office and really hit it off. She mentioned she was going through a divorce, but I didn't pry into her personal life. It wasn't the best first date conversation topic after all. Since she had a different last name than what was in my client files, I ran my conflict checks and nothing flagged. Everything was going smoothly with Sarah, and I was excited about where things were heading. Then came the day of our first four-way settlement meeting. I walked into the conference room, ready to discuss the case with Dave and his attorney. As I entered, I spotted Sarah sitting across the table with her lawyer. Time seemed to freeze. My briefcase slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a loud thud. Sarah went pale, and I could see the realization dawn on Dave's face as he looked back and forth between us. "Are you serious right now?" he asked, his voice low but filled with disbelief. Sarah started tearing up, and her attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. I stood there, feeling like the biggest fool in the legal world. I had to excuse myself with Dave, who was understandably upset. He started grilling me, asking how long this had been going on, and if I knew who she was. I tried to explain that I had been dating his wife without any clue about her identity. At first, he didn't believe me. "What kind of lawyer doesn't ask basic questions?" he kept saying. I had to pull out my intake notes to prove that I had no idea who Sarah was and how the conflict check had failed. It took about 20 minutes of back and forth before he finally accepted that this was just an unfortunate coincidence. Even then, he was shaking his head, muttering about how messed up the whole situation was. I explained that I would have to withdraw from this case and help him find new representation. There was no way I could represent him properly with a personal relationship with the opposing party. By the end of our conversation, he had calmed down enough to say, "This is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me." While he wasn't thrilled about starting over with a new lawyer, he understood why it had to happen. The paperwork that followed was a nightmare. I had to file a motion to withdraw since we were already in litigation, transfer all his files, and deal with refunding unused fees. Sarah and I didn't speak for 2 weeks after that meeting. We were both mortified. Her attorney spent a long time trying to convince himself that this wasn't some elaborate scheme. Even though no one intended for this to happen, I felt responsible for the chaos. I should have had better procedures in place to catch conflicts like this. A few weeks later, Dave texted me, but it wasn't friendly. It felt more like a reminder of the mess I had caused. "Hope you realize this completely messed up my timeline." I couldn't blame him. To add insult to injury, my malpractice insurance premium went up when I had to report the conflict. Looking back, I realize how much I could have done differently. Sarah had used another name socially that Dave hadn't disclosed, and my checks didn't catch it. Our relationship was less emotionally involved, as I had been overwhelmed with work. I could have done better to prevent this from happening, and I take full responsibility for the fallout. In the end, I don't fault Dave at all. I was involved with his wife while representing him, and there's no way to spin that where I come out looking good. It doesn't matter that I didn't know at first. By the time I figured it out, the damage was done. He had real stakes in that case: money, time, his business, and my withdrawal only complicated things further. So, there you have it. A day that started like any other turned into a professional disaster, and I learned a valuable lesson about the importance of thorough checks in my line of work. Let me take you back to a time when my life took an unexpected turn, one that I never saw coming. It all started in a conference room where I found myself entangled in a situation that would change my professional life forever. I was a lawyer, navigating the complexities of my career, when I accidentally became my client's wife's boyfriend. Yes, you heard that right. It wasn't intentional, but the fallout was significant. The story begins with a casual relationship I had been enjoying with a woman named Sarah. We had been dating for a couple of months, and everything seemed innocent enough. However, I had no idea that she was actually married to my client, Dave. The moment I discovered this shocking truth was during a meeting where I had to confront the reality of my situation. I had to withdraw from Dave's case, and I knew that he had every right to be upset with me. Fast forward a few weeks, and I received a call that would send shivers down my spine. I was summoned to a meeting with the senior partners at my law firm. There I sat, facing 3 partners, our firm's general counsel, and a representative from our malpractice carrier, all on a video call. The managing partner slid a folder across the table, and my heart sank. The opposing counsel had reported a conflict of interest to the state bar, and we were now facing a disciplinary inquiry. I had to explain everything: how I met Sarah, how we had been casually dating, and how her legal name didn't match the name she used socially. My conflict check hadn't flagged anything because I never connected the dots. As I explained my intake procedures and how the system worked, I could see the general counsel taking notes. It felt worse with every word I spoke. "This is a clear material limitation conflict," the general counsel stated. I had done the right thing by withdrawing, but now we needed to understand how this had slipped through the cracks. The representative from the malpractice carrier chimed in, stating that we would need to document this as a circumstance that could lead to a claim. Just what I needed: more stress. As a result of this incident, I was mandated to complete an 8-hour continuing legal education course on conflicts of interest before I could take on any new client intakes. I found myself in a hotel conference room with about 20 other attorneys, one of whom was Patricia, a divorce attorney I had opposed in the past. The look she gave me said it all. She knew why I was there. The seminar was mostly standard material, but when we reached the case studies, Patricia brought up a disciplinary matter that mirrored my own situation. I wanted to disappear as the details unfolded, revealing just how similar our stories were. During lunch, another attorney mentioned hearing about a similar case at a firm in town, and I realized the story was starting to circulate. After completing the seminar and passing the exam, I returned to the firm only to receive a letter from the state bar a few weeks later. The inquiry was closed with a private caution, which meant I received a warning that would stay in their files but wouldn't be public. It could have been worse, but my malpractice premium increased by 15% when it renewed, and the firm implemented new procedures specifically for me. For the next 6 months, I had to get conflicts pre-cleared by the general counsel before taking on any new clients. They also added mandatory nickname fields to our intake forms and conflict check system. But the worst part wasn't the official repercussions. It was the whispers and the nicknames that started to circulate. I was called the coffee shop lawyer at bar events, and I could feel the weight of the cautionary tales being told about me. I hadn't dated anyone since March. I even deleted my dating apps after a match mentioned her divorce, and I instinctively asked who her lawyer was. She unmatched me pretty quickly, and I couldn't blame her. As I reflect on this experience, I want to reach out to Dave and Sarah, hoping they're doing well. And to everyone else out there, please remember to ask the basic questions and run proper conflict checks. It's simply not worth the risk. What started as a casual relationship turned into a lesson learned the hard way. And I hope my story serves as a reminder to others in the legal field. Let me take you back to a day that started like any other, but quickly spiraled into a situation that was both hilarious and a little awkward. As an attorney, I pride myself on maintaining professionalism and keeping my personal life separate from my work. But sometimes, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs your way. It all began when I was assigned to represent a client who seemed perfectly normal at first. We had our meetings, discussed his case, and everything was going smoothly. However, things took an unexpected turn when I met his wife. She was charming, witty, and, well, a little too friendly. At first, I brushed it off as her being supportive of her husband's legal troubles. But as our interactions continued, I started to sense that there was something more going on. One day, while discussing the case, she casually mentioned how she appreciated my help and how nice it was to have someone to talk to. I thought, okay, this is just friendly banter. But then she started texting me more frequently, asking for advice on unrelated matters. I found myself in a position where I was not only her husband's attorney, but also becoming a confidant for her personal issues. Now, I'm not one to shy away from helping someone in need, but I began to realize that this was crossing some boundaries. I tried to keep things professional, but the more I pulled away, the more she seemed to pursue me. It was like I was caught in a romantic comedy, except I was the unwitting star of a love triangle I never signed up for. Things reached a peak when she invited me to a casual dinner, claiming it was just to discuss her husband's case. I hesitated but thought, what's the harm? Little did I know, this dinner would lead to a series of misunderstandings that would leave me questioning my professional ethics and my sanity. During the dinner, she started to share more personal stories, and I could feel the tension building. I was trying to maintain my composure, reminding myself that I was there to discuss legal matters, but as the evening progressed, it became clear that she was interested in more than just legal advice. I was caught off guard when she leaned in closer and whispered something that made my heart race. In that moment, I realized I had accidentally become her boyfriend, at least in her mind. I was flabbergasted. I quickly excused myself, claiming I had an urgent matter to attend to. As I left, I could feel her eyes on me, and I knew I had to put an end to this before it spiraled further out of control. The next day, I called my client to discuss the case, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I had to be honest with him about the situation, but I also didn't want to hurt his feelings. After a long conversation, I decided to come clean. I explained how I had unintentionally become too close to his wife, and that I felt it was best for everyone involved if I stepped back from the case. To my surprise, he was understanding. He appreciated my honesty and agreed that it was best for me to withdraw. I was relieved, but also a little embarrassed. I had learned a valuable lesson about boundaries and the importance of keeping my personal and professional lives separate. In the end, I managed to navigate through this unexpected love triangle without any major fallout. I've since implemented stricter boundaries in my practice, and I'm much more cautious about mixing personal interactions with my professional responsibilities. It's a funny story now, but at the time, it felt like I was living in a sitcom. So if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember to keep your wits about you and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Life can be unpredictable, but sometimes those unpredictable moments lead to the best stories.